just really unfortunate timing because you just joined that Europe division just before the financial crisis.
Yeah,
So how did that actually impact the way you see things?
that nothing is permanent, I always thought that working in a bank would, give you a very nice salary, very stable, bonuses. But, with the financial crisis, banks just close like this. So, yeah, you're a little bit more careful. So at the end of the day, the more senior I became, the more I became aware that it's really about what you bring to your job and not so much about, trying to stay in it so that you can tell people I work in a global bank or something like that, right?
Behind every policy and every portfolio, there is a person, a family, and a dream. You're listening to the Click Podcast, where we explore the intersection of wealth and well-being. I'm Zain, and today we're looking past the balance sheet to talk about what it really means to protect your legacy. Insurance isn't just about what happens if things go wrong. It's about making sure things stay right for the people you love. Please welcome into the studio, Luke. Hi, Luke. Could you please do a self-introduction and maybe share with us how you got started on your journey?
Well, I spent most of my working life in the banking sector as an accountant. And about 3 years ago, I basically decided to do something a bit more meaningful with my life and my job. And I decided to go into financial advisory.
So was that a planned decision or did it just occur to you?
Actually, no. What I wanted to do after I left my banking job was basically two things. Either to start a business of my own or basically to just do the easy thing and slot into another similar role in another bank. The problem was I didn't have a real idea for a business. And so what I did was I spoke to a couple of my friends, find out what possibilities there are for me. And somebody actually said to me, you worked in the bank for so long, why not try financial advisory? Hesitant because I've had bad experiences with the financial advisors of the past. Everybody has a secondary school friend who suddenly rings you up and says, let's go out for lunch. And what they do is they basically make use of the past relationship to ambush you with a name card and say, well, let's talk about business and so on. That experience stuck with me for a very long time. And therefore, I was hesitant. But I started to research how the job is supposed to be nowadays, what people do. I spoke to 4 different financial advisory firms to find out more about what the job entails and how it's like now these days. And I realized that there are firms nowadays. In the past, there used to be the 3 big boys. But these days, there are firms that basically have multiple partners that they can draw from to provide products to people who need them. And I think that's a great value add for clients because these days we all know there is AI, there is Google, there is all kinds of information available. And to be able to give people options, I think it's a great way to serve people.
Yeah. So you mentioned earlier that there is that negative stigma about old friends or old acquaintances pushing products onto you. So why do you think that's actually prevalent in today's society?
Well, I think it's competitive. I mean, to say that it's an easy job I would be lying. I think everybody needs to make a living. How we do it is, it's up to us to decide. But there are, of course, people who are more driven to succeed at any cost. And maybe that could be why.
Given your wealth of experience, could you share a little bit about the importance of insurance in Singapore and how it actually impacts happiness and quality of life?
Oh, interesting question. I think having insurance in your life is basically a foundation that you want to build in order to protect your future. And I think that really is a way to ensure that whatever happens in life, good or bad, you have a minimum capability from a financial standpoint. And I think that's fundamental to everybody's life, especially in a high-cost society like Singapore.
So it's not just so much of planning for retirement, but it's more so of like having a safety net?
Indeed. I think most of us have parents, children, or or dependents of any kind who rely on us for their daily lives and daily expenses. And, what if we get sick? What if we fall down and become disabled and are unable to work? So all of that, whatever happens to us, lives will still go on for the people who depend on us. And I think such products will help.
Like they say, avoid being the sandwich generation, right?
Indeed.
Like you said, you have been in the banking industry, you have been an accountant, and now you're a financial planner. What do you think the trend of investing is for the youth, and how has it shifted in the past 20 or so years?
With the information age and availability of information, what I see are basically youngsters who are super confident about investing. And by super confident, what they talk about are, in my view, less the fundamentals and more about the fads of the moment. So it could be your investing in AI shares, or it could be talking about Bitcoin, or it could be talking about, whatever is popular at the moment or whatever is present in the news. But really, it's investing is, at the essence, is quite simple. It's really about something called compounding and growing your money. And yeah, it's an old-fashioned thought, which I feel is still relevant today.
Old school.
Yeah, old-fashioned as well.
So throughout your whole journey, right, was there any self-doubt whether you could actually make it in the industry where you felt like giving up?
In financial advisory?
Both.
In banking, not so much, because I was very lucky to have good bosses along the way who trained me and who gave me opportunities. So that's why I was able to stay for this long. And in financial advisory, do I have doubts? Every day.
Because it's not easy making a career switch at that age.
I don't think it's about age, but more about the nature of the job taking a drastic turn, right? So when you're in the bank, the work comes to you. But when you're doing financial advisory, you have to go look for work. And that's a fundamental shift which I took a while to adjust to.
So look, from what I understand, early in your career, you also dabbled a little bit in the wine business. Could you share a little bit more about that?
Well, the backdrop to this business was we were at the age when we have started working for a couple of years. We began to make a little bit more money. And with a little bit more money, we thought too much of ourselves, and we started going to nice restaurants, drink wines, and basically have a good time.
Appreciate the finer things.
Indeed. We basically have three of us, actually, three of my close friends. We decided to start a wine business to supply to, clubs, restaurants, and so on. And we began the whole process of sourcing wines, coming up with some kind of a business strategy, and then going out to try to procure sales from that perspective. And yeah, so it was a fun process. It wasn't the easiest because I was working at the time and not sure how much you know about the banking industry, but in my line of work, it was normal back then for me to come in at about 8 in the morning. I don't leave till 8:30 at night. Yeah, it was tough, but it was like a pet project, so we always have time. We always have time.
Almost like 20-hour days.
Yeah, so we always have meetings after work, or sometimes when I have to meet purchasing managers in restaurants, I would sneak away at lunchtime and come back late and pretend nothing happened.
So how do you actually juggle that? Because that's definitely not easy.
I think it's just passion, because we were so keen on doing it that we wanted to just do whatever we could with whatever time we had. And to us at the time, it was fun.
Right. So how did that actually pan out?
See, we weren't so long-sighted at the time. We did it because we really felt that we loved wine, we loved the taste of it, and we loved how it pairs with food. So fast forward 4 years, what happened was the other two friends of mine, we were all having our careers sort of moving in an upward trajectory. We started traveling more. We started having less time for the business. And 4 years after I started, I was offered a job in Europe. I took up that offer because for my career it was a positive move. And unfortunately, because of that move, I think we decided that it was best for everyone that we stop the business. So we were forced to close it actually. Yeah.
Share with us a little bit more about your stint in Europe. Did it actually change the way you perceive things in the industry?
The biggest thing I learned from being in Europe was to try to sort of sit back sometimes instead of being too involved in work, because I was working at a place where in the same team as the bank CFO, the CFO of the whole bank, the global CFO. And basically what we did was we were like an R&D department in finance, and the output of what we did was used in presentations to the bank's executive board, and I arrived a month before Lehman collapsed. Yeah, the financial crisis. And yeah, it was really eye-opening the way we did analysis, the way we tried to dig up information that would create value for people making decisions.
That's just really unfortunate timing because you just joined that Europe division just before the financial crisis.
Yeah.
So how did that actually impact the way you see things?
That nothing is permanent, I always thought that working in a bank would, give you a very nice salary, very stable, bonuses. But, with the financial crisis, banks just close like this. So, yeah, you're a little bit more careful. So at the end of the day, the more senior I became, the more I became aware that it's really about what you bring to your job and not so much about, trying to stay in it for the, so that you can tell people I work in a global bank or something like that, right?
I'm sure there must have been a very dark moment. So how did you actually bring yourself out of it?
Well, I didn't, because I didn't have time to reflect, because once Lehman collapsed, it was like all systems go. Like every question was asked from the board, and questions need to be prepared immediately because everything is a priority. So we were stuck at the job. I worked in Netherlands and I worked in Amsterdam, to be specific. And in Amsterdam, it was a kind of place where work-life balance was valued. So we used to work in a very fancy building called the Shoe. And in the part of the Shoe, by 5:36, the whole building would be empty, except for one room where, there were people working, and that was my team. And all we were doing is trying to collate information, trying to put together data so that we can supply it.
Number crunching.
Yeah.
Okay.
One of the things I had to do was I had to read a lot of annual reports from banks, trying to figure out why certain banks did well and why other banks don't. Yeah, so a lot of analysis and number crunch.
It was part of like your learning curve, I would say.
Big learning curve.
So after so many years in the finance industry, when did you finally decide it was time to move on?
When I felt that, number one, I've sort of grown out of my role. And number two, I came to a point where I thought I should do something different, because I can't claim to know everything about banking, because nobody can. But I did feel that it was time for me to turn the page and try to do something that's more meaningful to me personally. And that's how I started looking for options.
So you mentioned that the biggest way to make a difference is to get them insured.
Yeah, basically it's to make people aware of the potential obstacles along the way in life and help them prepare for it.
So what are some of the must-have plans for like Singaporeans or even people in general?
Well, in my view, I think there are three basic plans we should try to have. And that is basically one, your hospitalization plans, which when you get hospitalized, it pays for most of your hospitalization bills. The second one would be something that takes care of you when you become sick. So like a critical illness plan. And the main difference there is, while the hospitalization plan pays your bills, the critical illness plans gives you a lump sum of money. So if you can't work because of your illness, you have a little you have a sum of money to help you tide over to replace your working income. And the third one would be a cheap plan, but a useful plan to have, and that would be your personal accident plan. So to give an example, a client of mine called me over the weekend to say, her son was playing football with a friend, and the friend kicked her son in the feet, and then son got injured and had to go see the doctor and subsequently TCM. Insurer will entertain those types of claims.
Okay.
Yeah.
So these are three.
Yeah.
Right.
Three basic. There are, of course, others, but three basic plans.
Okay. Do you ever think it's too late to buy insurance in terms of age?
Well, generally, I would always recommend people to buy insurance as early as possible, simply because life is unpredictable. I had a health episode. It happened to me at 30. And I know of people who have clients where a baby had leukemia from the second month. So imagine if the parents delayed. So I think yesterday was the best day, but the next best day is today.
Right. So you mentioned that you were having a cushy job, earning high salary and all. Was there an episode you had that suddenly made you realize it's time to move on?
First of all, my job was not cushy. It paid a decent wage, but I had to work for it. But yes, coming to the switch to financial advisory, well, I had a health episode, as I mentioned a little bit earlier. And what happened was when I was 30 years old, I was diagnosed with a brain tumor. And at that time, from an insurance perspective, what I had was only the hospitalization plan. And when I had the brain tumor, surgery was done, and there was a big bill. And I was fortunate because my employer basically paid off the bill for me. So I didn't have to rely on my hospitalization plan. So if they weren't so generous, I'll have to do that. And when I was thinking about what do I want to do after my banking career, that triggered a thought in my mind. And in terms of doing something meaningful. And what I intended to do coming into this job was basically to, be like a warning sign to people who are young, and to share with them my story and to sort of get them to see that things can happen anytime in life and you just don't know.
It must have been crazy surviving a brain tumor at 30, because I don't think I can ever imagine. Could you take us through how it was diagnosed and what were the steps you took in your recovery?
And I was changing lanes when I was driving. So the normal way you want to change lane is you look at the side mirror, you look to your blind spot, and you go. So there was one such time when I did that, and I almost crashed into another car, causing an accident. I thought it was my glasses that need tweaking because my the degree was sort of off. So I went to my neighbor's dad's shop. My neighbor was a ophthalmologist, an eye doctor, and his father had a spectacle shop, and they were sort of next to each other. So I went there, and the son greeted me first and said, "Oh, why are you here today?" And I told him about my driving incident, and he said to me, "Well, I've got a couple of machines here. Why don't you do a test and see, make sure everything's okay?" And so I did. And what turned out from those tests was that I had impaired vision. So the normal human being can see something like that, and
Your radius?
yeah, your field of vision.
Right.
But I can only see like this. And so the son told me, "Oh, there could be something that's blocking your optical nerve. I suggest you go get a CT scan to see what's wrong." So I took his advice and I did. And it turns out I had a tumor that's sort of sitting on the optical nerve, and which is why my vision was impaired. So that's how it happened. And the next thing that happened, surgery and so on.
So you're thankful that you made a full recovery?
I think so. And as luck would have it, 5 years later, I went to Amsterdam. And Amsterdam had the kind of insurance plan where you pay a small fee every month, about 99 euros, and they cover everything from cold to cancer, regardless of whether you had it previously or not. So I made use of that stint there. I went for radiation therapy, and I just make sure that every single bit of the tumor was erased. So touch wood, everything seems okay now.
Okay. So having gone through that yourself, what will you say to all the seemingly healthy people out there?
You never know. You could be fine 1 minute and something can happen. So while you're healthy, take full advantage of your health. Get a plan that can protect you. And because if you're young, you pay for a much lower price.
So a lot of people think that financial advisory is a scam, or there are many negative connotations to that. What do you have to say to that?
Our licenses are issued by MAS, and MAS has a very strict regime of rules where we are forced to comply. But I have in the past heard about people who are less scrupulous about when it comes to selling products to people. I've not seen it currently, but I do feel that in order to make sure that we don't go on the wrong side of the law, we need to approach our business in a certain way that takes care of the client and make sure that the client's best interests are considered.
I'm sure when you first shared with your family that you wanted to make the transition from banking into insurance, they must have thought like, are you crazy? Are you okay? So how do you actually convince them that this was the right move?
There was some surprise, but I'm lucky because I have supportive family members who, basically wish me luck. And yeah, I think it was a rather smooth transition on that front, thankfully.
Now, being someone that has gone through all these, what does wealth truly mean to you?
That's an interesting one. I think being healthy is really important. And being healthy also means a higher quality of life. I mean, you could live to a ripe old age of 100 or 120, but if most of that is spent bedridden or in a wheelchair, I think that's unfortunate and not great in terms of quality of life. So being healthy, I think, having enough money to live your lifestyle, of course, but also just as important, living well and being healthy.
I think nowadays a very big problem we're facing is that young people want to buy sexy investments like Bitcoin, AI stocks, tech stocks. So what do you actually have to say to those people that don't really look at critical illness or like all these base plans, but rather want to jump straight into your higher risk investments?
The good thing about jumping in these sexy avenues for young people is that they have a longer runway. So that's advantageous. But at the same time, it's also dangerous because if you don't understand what you're investing, you're more likely to fail and be subject to market whims and cash out at the first opportunity when prices are the lowest. So I think being educated is actually very important to actually know how to grow your money, how to diversify your risk at the level that's appropriate to you. That's all critical decisions that we have to make and facts we have to know.
So how do you actually make that transition then to pick up sales skills?
I did it the hard way, obviously. I had to learn quickly, to make a living. And I was lucky because the firm I was at, we have a very good culture in terms of information sharing, sales training, and ways to think about how to help people and how to place products in different scenarios. So I've had a lot of support on that, and I'm lucky also because I have a little bit of experience from my past professional life. So it was good, but the most difficult part, I would say, is actually calling up people and telling them that you're doing this and you like to have a chat with them about financial planning. I think that was the toughest, and I really struggled.
Well, you got through it. That's all that matters. Yeah. Who do you think are the easiest people to sell to, and who are the most difficult?
It's also a very interesting question, but I found that people who I know less well are also the people who gave me opportunities. So basically, strangers are the people who gave me more opportunities. It's not that my friends don't give me opportunities. I always see it as it's not the time now. Doesn't mean that they won't talk to me or support me later. But yeah, but at the moment, because I'm almost 3 years into the game, I'm finding that strangers actually give me more opportunities.
So you work better with a cold market.
Semi-warm, I would say.
Semi-warm.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So what do you think separates a good agent from a great one?
I have a great agent as a boss. She always teaches me, she teaches my team members one thing, and that is your starting place when it comes to being a financial advisor should be having a good heart. And I think that's critical because when you have that, you will want to think less about how much money you make from a certain sale to, how you can help people and make a good living at the same time. So there's a phrase for this in our industry. It's called doing well by doing good. And I think that's quite inspiring, and I try to be like that. Yeah.
So that's sort of your motto in the industry.
Yeah. One of the value-added services we provide to clients is basically our access to doctors and hospitals. So just in the past couple of weeks, a client came to me and basically said, I just gone to the gym, we did some classes, and I feel a back pain. Do you know of any specialists? So what I did for them was to connect them to a pool of specialists working within a certain private hospital in Singapore, and I match the client to a specialist. And basically, what happened was this lady had a slip disc, and with the slip disc, you needed immediate surgery to rectify. So, along with matchmaking the specialist to the client, what we did was basically to ensure that the onboarding process was smooth and quick. So basically, warding the patient took less than 30 minutes. They basically had all kinds of perks with hampers, with free parking, and things that will make them more comfortable, and they'll stay more comfortable. So these are the things that we actually try to help when we can.
You mentioned that cold calling is actually a part of the job.
Yeah.
And you hated it still.
Yeah.
So how do you actually overcome it, like push through?
I try to do it still, but I avoid it if I can. But I think in order to avoid that altogether, to me, I think the secret sauce is basically to serve clients well. And if they feel that, you're not a creep, you're not a scammer, I think they'll be more open to referring clients to you, potential clients to you, and where you can help more. And it's sort of, it's got a multiplier effect. And that's what I try to achieve.
So look, personally, I'm on really good terms with my own agent. He's like a brother to me. We'll come out together occasionally. It's not all about the financial planning and review, but I see him more as like a buddy. So are there any close friends turn clients, or the other way around, clients turn close friends?
Close friends, well, it's all about definition and what you mean by a close friend. To me, a close friend represents a client which has decided to trust you. And when the client trusts you, they would ask you everything. So whether it's related to financial planning or without. So I do have a couple of people who I meet regularly who are also clients. And what's more important to me rather than meeting them regularly, I feel, is that whenever they encounter a problem, they would ask you. So it'll be things like, hey, my son needs to go to this class. What do you think? Is this type of you become less of a friend and more of a confidant, which
Suddenly your opinion matters.
exactly, which I feel quite honored when such things happen to me, because it feels that you've got a real relationship happening, and you feel like a trusted advisor.
You got that sense of accomplishment, satisfaction as well.
Indeed, it's the small things.
You quoted Warren Buffett and Jeff Bezos saying, nobody wants to get rich slow. So how do you sell patience in an era of instant gratification?
Well, I'm an accountant by training. So what I try to do is I show them the power of compounding. And one of the things I tell them is things like, I don't know if you have heard the rule of 72. So the rule of 72 is quite simple. If you take 72 divided by your returns per year, you will know how long it takes for you to double your money. That has got to do with compounding. And it's concepts like that I introduce to them. And of course, I try to visualize it a little bit so they can actually see the impact. And once they understand that, being patient has its own reward, they would normally get convinced.
I think in this industry, one thing we have to talk about is rejection. You are definitely going to get doors slammed in your face, right? So it's not easy for us as guys, especially with an ego and stuff. How do you handle rejection?
When I was in the army, I was in the guards unit, and I was in a vocation that was slightly sensitive, which meant that there was a lot of tough training. What we were trained to do is basically not concentrate on how far it is and not concentrate on how hard it is, but really concentrate on taking the next step. So one leg in front of the other, just keep focusing on one leg in front of the other, one leg in front of the other, and gradually you get there. And that's what I try to do, because, rejections are quite normal.
So could you share with us one of the worst rejections you ever faced and how you actually overcome it?
I think the ones who hit me the most are the one who basically ghosts you. It'll be a meeting. I'll go through, the usual data collection, find out a little bit about the prospects' needs, wants, and so on, and what they want to achieve. You would have what seemed like a meaningful discussion with positive responses, and everything seems to go well. And when you try to follow up subsequently after the meeting, you get some people would basically just disappear. And I think that kind of mixed messaging is rather stressful.
So they leave you on red.
Exactly. So it's those types of examples where I feel, how did that happen?
Do you do something wrong?
Yeah, exactly. And it's one of my follow-ups whenever I get a rejection is to, is there something I could have done better?
What would you actually say to struggling insurance agents out there? People that are maybe 1 or 2 years in, they don't really have a clientele built up. So how would you actually encourage them to continue and push through?
Well, I think it's important to keep honing your skill, keep doing the right things. And I think eventually, if you have the heart for people and you keep doing things that, that help you gain trust with prospects, eventually you'll get there, because it's never a fast thing. I mean, in the first couple of years, most of us turn to family and friends, and you might have some result there. But that doesn't last for very long. So it really is about trying to do the right things day in, day out, and eventually you should get what you hope to achieve.
What advice will you give to someone that's looking to come into the industry?
Do your research, be prepared, because it's a ride. So for new people, I think you have to really search within yourself and ask, number one, understand what the job is, and number two, whether you've got, a heart of steel to withstand the first year or two, because statistically speaking, the first 2 years are the most critical for a financial advisor, because that's the point where you are more likely to drop out.
The dropout is the highest. Now, as they always say, hindsight is 20/20. Now that you have had such a wealth of experience under your belt and all these years, what will you go back and tell 29-year-old Luke before the brain tumor was discovered?
If I knew now what I knew then, I would say get additional insurance plans. So if I had insurance plans at 29 years old, I would have received some form of insurance payment for my condition when I was 30 years old. So protecting myself from an insurance point of view would be vital, and also to invest earlier so that I can reap the compounding effects from my investments.
Now, there are so many insurance plans out there in the market. Are there any uncommon ones that you feel that most people overlook?
I think if a person were to talk to an insurance agent, most products would not be uncommon or unfamiliar. But I think what's more crucial here is that a product would be introduced to a person depending on life circumstances and wants and needs. So no, nothing comes to mind right now, but I would say it's more circumstantial, and just like a doctor would prescribe medicine to a patient, a financial advisor would look at the circumstances and the overall picture of a person's finances and recommend certain solutions that would best address their situation.
Now, with the rise of AI, do you think the role of a financial advisor will ever be fully replaced?
Parts of it. I would say the technical parts can easily be replaced, although I think in a line as ours, the human touch is irreplaceable.
It will always be there.
Yeah, you need a point of contact. You need to show concern, care, as well as be there for a person when a person falls sick, for example. And AI can never do that.
Now, with the rise of so many investment platforms out there, even I do my own investing. So, how is that different from buying an investment plan from an agent?
Well, in short, if you were to invest yourself, it means that you have to spend time, you have to spend effort in addition to your job, your family, your kids, and you have to try to conceive of a strategy, looking for suitable products, assessing your own risk to do that. And your profit or loss is directly accountable to you and your decisions. Now, if you go to experienced and credible advisor, you would have a person whose whole job is to help you research, help you analyze, and help you recommend products that may be suitable for you. And yeah, and I think although in today's context, high stress Singapore and so on, most of us are too busy with our jobs to bother about insurance, investments, and so on. So is there an upside to having an advisor advising you on suitable products and the client paying a small fee for that advice? I would argue yes.
Now, after making the switch from banking into financial advisory, was there any moment where you would doubt yourself if you really could do this?
I made the decision to go into the industry. So from that perspective, I was committed to the role. Was I uncomfortable in the process? Yes. Did I feel that I couldn't do the job at times? Yes. But did I feel that I made the wrong choice? No. So yes, it's a yes and no sort of question. So I did reflected and thought about whether I had the capability to do it. But, I did commit myself to this choice and I want to try to make the best of it.
Now, look, let's say if I have diabetes or any pre-existing condition, does that mean I totally cannot buy any insurance?
Well, in general, if you had a pre-existing condition and if it's a major one, there is a chance that insurers will not cover your pre-existing insurance as well as any issues related to that pre-existing condition. So in this case, diabetes. But does that mean that you can't get covered for other issues or new illnesses, for example? I think you certainly can. And of course, at the end of the day, it's subject to the insurer's underwriting process and we'll have to see. But in theory, you should be able to, for example, buy coverage for cancer, even though you have diabetes.
So that means I can still buy insurance, but my premiums might be higher, or how does that?
That is a possibility. I mean, if you have an existing condition, it is likely that there could be an adjustment to the premium as well as the coverage. Of course, it depends on the set of circumstances, but that could happen.
And it's still subject to the underwriter.
It is subject to the underwriter.
All right, now, Luke, we are going to go into the rapid fire question segment. So this segment is very simple. Just reply with the first thing that comes to your mind. Don't need to worry so much. One-liners, good enough. Ready? What do you say to someone that tells you, do I need to invest?
I would say, do you have a lot of money to retire?
Do you think you have to be a people's person to do this job?
I think so. More importantly, you need to be credible as well as trustworthy.
Have you met anyone that you feel has changed your life?
Yes, I've had the fortunate experience to have a couple of very good bosses at work. Yeah, who basically trained me the old-fashioned way, which means harsh and demanding, and rewarded me for it when I did well.
Your number one investment tip?
Number one investment tip: invest early and get somebody who can advise you properly.
Any quote or person or book that inspired you?
Not really, but one of the things I did when I started going into studying about investment was to read Warren Buffett's annual letters to shareholders. I read every letter from 1965 onwards, and I learned a lot from there.
What's your money philosophy in one sentence?
Don't spend what you don't need to spend.
If you could meet one person in the world, anyone, who would it be and why?
Warren Buffett, because he was my first investment idol.
Safe to say you really look up to him.
Yeah.
When you stop counting coins and start counting impact, that's when you really start to love what you do. Thank you for bringing the heart back into finance. Guys, smash that like button if you learned something today. Go out there, find your purpose, and make it your paycheck. I will see you next week. Join the click. Okay, if you have a chance to talk to yourself 20 years ago, what will you say to him? Buy
Oh my God.
buy more insurance?
20 years ago. Buy more insurance.
You go to insurance now.
Invest more money. Be smarter about the investments.
Like, oh, what?
Question.
What's that phrase? Hindsight is what? 2020? 40?
Yes.
20?
Is it 2020?
I can't even remember. Wait,
80-80 or 2020?